People have been asking me, as a newly elected senator, are you having fun? And I wouldn't exactly describe it that way. But I will tell you, one of the things that I'm very sad about is that I did not have the honor and pleasure of serving with Senator Barbara Mikulski at the time that she was such a fierce fighter and leader in the United States Senate. And she's so extraordinary, as we all know, from her years of service and just her presence. There is an inverse relationship between her height and her power. And in fact, and Secretary Albright mentioned it, she is known as being a dean of the women in the Senate. And we only this year now have 21 women in the United States Senate, a body of 100 people. But Barbara Mikulski was a trailblazer from the very beginning, and one of the really extraordinary things about her leadership, not only for the nation, but among so many of us who seek elected office, is that she has always been one of the most nurturing and encouraging and supportive for so many of us in our careers. So I speak for all of the women of the United States Senate in thanking you for your leadership and your friendship and your sisterhood. Thank you, Barbara. And Madeleine Albright, yes, we have known each other for many, many years, and through Catherine, her daughter, and in San Francisco, and I've spent so many years talking with her about her perspective, and she has been an advisor, a friend, a mentor, and again, someone who's been so incredibly supportive of me personally throughout my career, from the time I ran for District Attorney of San Francisco through my tenure as Attorney General of California. And I cannot thank you enough for that and for your incredible national and international leadership for so many of us. Secretary. So I'm very happy to be here, and I want to thank, but I actually also want to mention that Kenneth Wallach also mentioned to me as I was coming up, he said, Secretary Albright in 16 years has never missed one meeting of the NDI, not one meeting, and that must be said as well, in spite of all of her travels and obligations. So I want to thank the National Democratic Institute for the outstanding work you do, and for the folks who are here supporting that work. It is obviously the work of strengthening democracy around the globe, and in particular, it has been about, at this moment in time, as Secretary Albright has so forcefully made the point, the leadership offered here is as critical or more critical than ever before. And we all know that we're facing a lot of challenges in this world, and there are a lot of folks out there that are asking the question of themselves, of our country, and of our world, which is, who are we? What are our values? What do we stand for? And through the leadership and the direction offered by NDI, I think there is an answer to that question. And so I thank you all. So I will share with you, with my new friends, a little bit about my background. You've heard a little bit about it, but I will tell you I come from a long line of tough, trailblazing, and phenomenal women. My grandmother would go into villages in India, because she was Indian and lived in India, and she would go to the villages in India. It was a famous story in our family. My grandfather would say she was going to be the end of his career, but my grandmother would go into the villages with a bullhorn, talking with the women about the need to have access to reproductive health care. She was an extraordinary woman. My mother came to the United States from India at the age of 19 after having graduated college, because she wanted to study in what was then and still considered to be one of the best universities in the world to study endocrinology. So she arrived at UC Berkeley at the age of 19 in the late 1950s, which also tells you something about my grandfather, who said, you want to go study and you want to be the best, you can go anywhere you want. I'll send you and I'll encourage that. And so my mother started her career and ended her career as a scientist, as an endocrinologist with a specialization in breast cancer and breast cancer research. And she met my father when they were both graduate students then there at Berkeley. My sister and I, Maya, we joke because they met when they were active in the civil rights movement. So we joke that we grew up surrounded by a bunch of adults who spent full time marching and shouting about this thing called justice. And frankly, that was what inspired me to want to become a lawyer. Because of the many heroes of that movement, of course, there was Thurgood Marshall and Charles Hamilton Houston and Constance Baker Motley, and these individuals who understood the skill of the profession of law to translate the passion from the streets to the courtrooms of our country. They understood the importance of doing that work, of reminding folks of that great promise we articulated in 1776, that we are all and should be treated as equals. And that is what inspired me to want to be a lawyer. I went to Howard University, and I know we have actually the president of the Howard University Student Association. Where are you? Right there. Stand and acknowledge. And she's graduating in just a couple of weeks and is going to be a Truman Fellow. So we're very proud of her, all of us. And so that was my background. And right out of law school, I decided I wanted to be a prosecutor. It was interesting because many people in my family, in my extended family, said, well, you know, you want to fight for justice like all of us, but that's a curious decision that you've decided to be a prosecutor. My sister, for example, went on to run the ACLU. But what I said then and what I maintain today after a career in law enforcement is, you know, law enforcement, and it has such a direct impact on the most vulnerable among us, and has then as its job and responsibility to be a voice for the most voiceless and vulnerable. And that's the work that I wanted to do. And so I was a career prosecutor. I tried everything from low-level offenses to homicides. And then for those women in the room who are thinking about running for elected office, I will share with you these stories. So I decided back in 2003 that the district attorney of San Francisco, who was the incumbent, he comes from an old political family. His name is KO because he was known as being a boxer who knocked people out. I decided that, and a bunch of us really felt that the job was not being run very well. The office was not being run very well, and in particular as it related to crimes against women and children, domestic violence, child abuse, things of that nature. So I decided to run against this incumbent, two-term incumbent from an old political family, and his nickname is KO. And I was then told what many of us in this room have been told many times and will be told. It's not your turn. It's not the right time. There's nobody like you who has done that before. It's going to be really hard work, as though that's the reason that any of us would not do what we do. And for all of the young women and anyone here who's thinking about running for office, and when you are told that, I will tell you, do not listen. Do not listen. And so I did not listen, and even though I started out at 6 points in the polls, which just for everyone's information, that means 6 out of 100, we pulled together a coalition of people, right? Understanding the thing that NDI stands for as part of it, understanding we all have so much more in common than what separates us. Let's bring people together around those common values and priorities, and so that's what we did with our politics, built a coalition. And I won, and I was elected as the first woman district attorney of San Francisco, and the first woman of color to ever be elected district attorney in the state of California. And so I was there. Thank you. And so I was there for 2 terms, and then I thought that a lot of the work that we were doing around criminal justice reform and some of the work we were doing focusing on women and girls and children, that we could take statewide. So I decided in 2010 to run for Attorney General of California. So I'll now share with you that story. So I heard the same doubts. I heard the same points that were made that last time. Not your turn. Nobody like you has done this before. It's going to be really hard work. I also heard, and you're from San Francisco, you're a woman of color, personally opposed to the death penalty, who wants to be the top cop of the biggest state in the country. Ain't gonna happen, they said. And I didn't listen. And, sometimes I say, I like to eat no for breakfast. It's just, I did not listen. And they said it'll never happen, and of course they were wrong, but I will also tell you that on election night, my opponent actually declared his victory. And so it was a process of counting votes for many, many days. But as elected, as the Attorney General of California, I was elected again as the first woman Attorney General of California, first person of color. And all of that leads me then to where I stand today before you as a member of the United States Senate, and only the second African-American woman to have been elected to the United States Senate, and the first Indian-American ever elected to the United States Senate. And so I will now share with you my comments from the vantage point of where I stand, but influenced and informed by all of the experiences before now. I think we all know that we have and are being faced with a lot of challenges. And I also believe, however, that there is a lot to be encouraged about here and around the world. Thanks to the amazing work of organizations like NDI, more and more women have been elected and have taken on leadership roles from Jordan to Liberia to Guatemala. I couldn't be more excited about the work of Women Act for Living Together and the award it is receiving today to support gender equality and a more inclusive governance in the Central African Republic. And here in the United States, as tough as the 2016 election may have been, let's not forget that Hillary Clinton became the first woman major party nominee for President of the United States. In fact, there was a great article I recently read in the Washington Post, it was a few weekends back, about these new candidates for office in our country, and one statistic was particularly impressive. Last year, Emily's List talked to about 900 women who were interested in running for office, be that school board, state legislature, and Congress. And already, in the first few months of this year, they've heard from 11,000 women interested in running for office. So we have to always remind ourselves in these fights for what is right, for civil rights, for human rights, for equity, for equality, for fairness, we always have to remind ourselves, fellow warriors and soldiers, that we also have had successes, and it is important to remember that just to fuel the fight that we have ahead. And let's talk about then the challenges that do remain. As you know, women are 51% of the United States population, but make up just under 20% of members of the United States Congress as a whole, and only about a quarter of state legislators. So it's time we change that. Globally, women are 50% of the population, but hold only 23% of seats in national legislatures. So it's obviously time to change that. There are countries where women, as Secretary Albright described, there are countries where women who engage in the political process face not only slurs or whisper campaigns or comments about their appearance, they face rape, they face violence, and they face death. So imagine being killed for trying to serve in Parliament, for trying to vote in the 21st century. So we know we've got to change that. And there's a broader trend at play here. Look at the countries that lag behind in the education of girls. Look at the countries with the highest rates of child marriage. They're called child brides, as we know, but let's be clear. It is most often rape. It is most often child molestation. Let's look at the countries that practice female genital mutilation. Let's look at the countries that limit access to women's reproductive health. It's not a coincidence that the vast majority of these countries that oppress women and deny them opportunities are not democracies, and many are in fact ruled by authoritarian regimes. When citizens are shut out of their government, women are shut out of their government. When people's voices are silenced, women's voices are silenced. That's what's at stake here. And by the way, as we know, the United States still has a long way to go on many of these related issues. So we need to keep speaking up on behalf of every woman's right to be heard and to realize her power. My mother used to tell my sister and me, you may be the first to do many things, but make sure you're not the last. We have a lot of work to do. And so let's dig into then why that matters to all of us, why the work that we do and must do is so important. Because here's the thing we all know, and that more people, I think, need to understand. Bringing women into government is not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. It yields better policy. It yields healthier democracies, and it makes stronger communities. Let's think about it. Do we want to defeat terrorism? Do we really want to defeat terrorism? Of course we do. Well, let me tell you, one of the good ways to think about that is that the fight to defeat terrorism is going to require us to empower women and girls.
Hey, this is John Alexander, Naima Latif, and we're with our president, and we are in Washington, D.C. Now, yes, right, and you know we just elected this beautiful lady as our president, and already we're doing great things together. For those of us who think that me and her were against each other, you were very wrong. We are very, 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 very tight. This is CAPS, and CAPS is getting moved to a new alliance at a higher level, so I'm going to let the president and Naima just having fun, just talking. I'm just introducing them, so I see y'all. I'm going to get back behind the camera.
Thank you for joining us on the Media Connection. I am here with Kaye Cooksey, who is the newly elected president of the Chicago Alliance of African American Photographers, CAP. And this is a fantastic place to be. We are here in Washington, D.C. for the Madeleine Albright Luncheon, great awards ceremony, and I'm going to let you talk to our new president of CAP, a great visionary photographer. Thank you so much, Kaye, for talking to us today.
Oh, well, thank you, Naima. It's a pleasure to be here in our nation's capital, and especially seeing you and John come down the stairs was an immense surprise. I'm like, yay! My tribe is here. It's a pleasure to be here. This is a different level than what I've done before. I used to travel as a flight attendant with another president, who used to have White House press corps charters that flew along with him to different places, and got to meet a lot of the photographers and things, and I would even attribute to their photographers encouraging me to pursue the career in photography. The Washington, D.C. is an amazing city. I love being here. I wish I could stay longer. There's a large contingency of Chicago people here, as well as I went to Spelman College. There's my Spellhouse family here, the house. And it's a beautiful place, you know. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be elected to represent CAP as their president, to serve as president. It's an enormous responsibility. We have a lot of work to do. We got a lot of things to make happen, and I'm just so excited about what's about to take place. And I'm so encouraged by the outpouring of people that love CAP, that want to be a part of CAP, that's, you know, that loves photography like I do and like you do and like we all do. So it's a new journey. It's an exciting journey, and I'm glad to be that all of us are on it.
Yes. Well, being here in the nation's capital, it does give us really a global vision of how important it is to capture images. What are some of the things that perhaps this event has inspired in you in terms of a vision of where we can take CAP as an organization?
Well, I believe our organization should have ties globally within the media, within the media. I believe if there is an event, we should be well represented, well documented. Our mission statement is to document the African American experience globally as well as locally. So I'm hoping that we can get someone everywhere, all times, with a camera that knows how to work it. and and document it, because 100 years from now, somebody will be looking at what we did. They'll be looking, we'll be gone, and this is what we will leave to them. This is what they did back in the days. Oh, wow, look how they dressed. Look what they did. Look how they addressed certain problems. And we have documented it. So.
Did we connect anything different today?
So I know there were a lot of connections made today, a lot of networking. Who were some of the people that you had a chance to kind of introduce CAP to here at this event?
Kamala Harris, I met her press secretary, I believe that's who I met. There was the African contingency that was here, was really nice. It was so exciting meeting them. They are beautiful people, absolutely beautiful, and it just makes you want to go home back to the motherland, just hop on a plane. But let me see. Oh, I met a photographer here that he was with the media, and he does a lot of the events here in Washington, D.C., and it was great meeting another African-American photographer who has a Nikon, by the way. But yeah.
Now, in the media, who represented the media today?
John Alexander.
No, it was on those fabulous.
Yeah, we had a nice.
Microphone.
We actually had a nice contingent of African American media people here at this wonderful luncheon, and the fact that the keynote speaker was an African American senator from California, who's already being touted as perhaps the first black president of the United States, because she's very powerful in her presentation. So we really captured some significant history, and we're kind of able to put her out on the world stage even before other people are really conscious. This is a woman that just got elected to the U.S. Senate. So we've kind of set the tone by being the media people here. How do you see CAP being able to make those connections with key people that a lot of Chicagoans and Americans don't even know exist that are in our midst?
Well, it's up to us to make aware of who we are and where we are throughout this world and what we're doing. If the problem isn't ignorance, the problem is refusing to look, or the problem is not making it available to see. And that, in turn, is what we do at CAP. We make it available so you can see our people and what they're doing, and give you hope and encouragement to want to make a difference in this world. And that it's a huge world out there for you to see. The world is waiting to meet you and ready for you to make that change, that difference that needs to be made in this world. So by documenting it, by getting these images out, images of us, positive images, we are making a change. We are awakening and showing them, showing the world, showing our people, that person that lives maybe in a small town that has never left their city block, and see what we're doing and aspire to do what we're doing.
Yes, to aspire to do what we're doing. There are a lot of things that Senator Kamala Harris said today that really inspired me, when she was talking about people tell you you can't do something, ignore them. And that was really a motivator to me. And of course, now you're president of an organization which I can see going beyond Chicago, going beyond the U.S., going global, because the need for us to seize the power to define through our images is so great. Give us a little bit of your vision for CAP in terms of, the sky is the limit. Where do you see us being able to take this?
Well, one of the things Camilla said in her speech, she eats no for breakfast. That was pretty awesome. And you have to have a defiant spirit. The bratty attitude, you can't tell me what to do. You're not the boss of me. Exactly. And the fact that now that CAP major officers are women, it's saying something. You can't live in a world and have the logic that a woman in leadership is detrimental or it shouldn't be done. That is crass and illogical thinking. It's digressive thinking, and there's no place for that. We African American women, or any woman, you want to do something, you want to make the change, we can do it. We raise children, we give birth to children, we give birth to ideas. So we make it happen. You can't tell us no.
That's right.
And if you don't believe it, ask your mother.
That's right. I like that. We eat no for breakfast. I'm going to remember that one. Well, we really had a great time here, and I think it was a learning experience. So now it's time to go and eat. But for all of you all who are...
Wait a minute, if you got the camera guy behind the camera, this is still Cap.
Well, of course, we want to thank the wonderful, skilled, technical work of Mr. John L. Alexander, whose skills always make it possible, because, again, these moments you can't do them over. If your equipment's not working right, the sound is not right, your image is not right, it happened, but it's all in your head. So you have to know your stuff, and that's one of the things. If you're a photographer, you need to be a part of CAP, because this organization gives you the skill to do what's necessary to capture those moments that need to live on in history. So I'm Naima Latif. Now, CAP is the Chicago Alliance of African American Photographers.
So we're going to start at CAP.
CAP.
International CAP.
That's right, CAP International, yes. Actually, we could do a CAP and then, yeah, there we go. CAP International. And that's right, from the visionary Kaye Cooksey, new president of CAP.
Okay.
It's already started.
All right.
We'll see you next time.
Be well.